Lost Fortune of Grey Peak, A Legacy Unveiled. Written by Jules Wilder. Chapter 1, The Next Step. The morning sun filtered through the dense canopy of trees as Hank, Sam, and Jean made their way deeper into Grey Peak's forest. Accompanied by the cheerful melodies of robins and the rhythmic chirps of sparrows, the trio's footsteps mimicking the marching rhythm. The air was crisp and cool, carrying the earthy scent of pine and damp soil. "Ugh, this reminds me of the old country," Jean remarked, his Irish lilt echoing warmly. He paused to take a deep breath. "Brings back memories of hiking through County Wicklow's hills. It's no wonder this place is named after the Grey Peaks of Ireland." Hank adjusted his backpack, glancing over at Jean. "You never told us much about your time in Ireland. Did you grow up there?" I did," Jean replied, smiling wistfully. "And it seems our pirate friends had roots there too." The Gaelic inscription on that map hinted at it. Many pirates were Irish, fleeing the British crown, and they often used these Gaelic phrases as codes. Sam, intrigued, stopped to listen. "So you think they brought their treasure here to Grey Peak?" "It makes sense, doesn't it?" Jean nodded, tapping the map in Hank's hand. "This place could have been their refuge. Those tunnels beneath the town, the very ones they carved through the rock, were likely their escape routes and hiding spots." Hank nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "And they hid the treasure here, leaving clues for those who knew how to read them, like a message from the past." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of rustling leaves. They turned to see a group of hikers passing by, exchanging friendly nods before continuing their journey into the forest. As the trio resumed their walk, Jean continued. "The map was a guide, but the language was a barrier. Only those who understood the Irish language and the pirates' history could truly decipher it." Sam chuckled. "Good thing we have you with us then. Your knowledge is invaluable." Jean laughed, a hint of pride in his voice. Well, let's see if it leads us to more than just history." They finally arrived at their destination, a rocky clearing near the base of the mountain. Hank unfolded the map and placed it on a flat rock. "This is it," he said, tracing a line with his finger. The first landmark. A massive stone stood before them, covered in moss and lichen. Its surface bore a faint carving, weathered by time but still discernible. Jean leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "Here we go. It's a riddle in Gaelic. Where shadows dance and whispers meet, the heart of the peak shall guide your feet." "What do you make of it?" Sam asked, peering at the stone. "I think it could mean we need to find a place where the sun casts shadows that align with the whispers of the wind," Jean explained with a chuckle. "A spot in the forest where the natural elements come together." Hank surveyed the area, spotting a narrow path leading further into the woods. "I think we should head west. Let's follow this trail. It might take us to the right spot." With renewed determination, the trio pressed on, eager to uncover the next clue in their quest. The anticipation was palpable, and with each step they felt the weight of history pressing upon them. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the atmosphere changed. The trees grew denser, and the air seemed to hum with a quiet energy. It was as if the forest itself was alive, watching over them as they embarked on their journey to solve the mystery of the lost fortune. Chapter 2, Whispers of the Past. The path wound through the dense forest, the sunlight flickering through the leaves like scattered jewels on the forest floor. The three old friends walked in silence, each man lost in thoughts of the mystery they were unraveling. Forest around them felt ancient, as if it held secrets long forgotten by time. "So these tunnels," Sam began, breaking the quiet. "You think they were used to hide the treasure?" Jean nodded, his eyes scanning the trees. "Aye. The tunnels were likely dug by the pirates to move their plunder discreetly. Grey Peak's landscape, with its caves and rock formations, provided the perfect cover." Sam, walking a few steps behind, kept his eyes on the surroundings, ever watchful. "Let's hope it's leading us to the treasure and not into a trap. You know how these old legends can be, filled with tricks and traps." Hank rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "If only we knew where all those tunnels led. They could be connected to this treasure, hidden in places only the pirates knew. Or their descendants," Jean added. "It's possible some of the original crew's families remained in the area, keeping the secret alive through generations." The path narrowed, leading them to a clearing where the trees parted to reveal an old stone monument, partially covered in vines. The monument's surface was engraved with symbols and Gaelic phrases, each telling a story from the past. Sam, always the practical one, began circling the structure, his eyes scanning the ground for anything out of place. We should look for anything unusual, a loose stone, a hidden compartment, anything. As they searched, the tension in the air grew. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for the next move. Hank finally spoke, breaking the silence. "This feels different from the other clues, like we're on the verge of something big." Jean approached the monument, tracing the carvings with his fingers. "This is fascinating. These symbols speak of a pact made between the pirates and the local villagers. The villagers agreed to shelter them in exchange for a share of the treasure." Sam whistled softly, impressed. "That's quite a deal. But what happened to the fortune?" "Maybe it was hidden away to protect it from raiders and to ensure the town's prosperity," Dean said. "The pirates likely feared that someone would betray them, so they hid it well." Hank studied the monument closely, spotting a small inscription near the base. "Look here," he pointed out. "It mentions a guiding light in the night sky. Maybe a reference to the North Star? Or another celestial marker," Jean suggested. "We need to find a spot where the stars align with the map's clues." As they continued their exploration, they came across a patch of forest where the trees opened up to the sky. The setting sun cast long shadows across the ground, creating a dance of light and dark, seemed to whisper secrets to the observant. Jean took out a small compass, aligning it with the map. "If we're right, we need to wait until nightfall to see the stars and align them with this path." Sam settled down on a fallen log, stretching his legs. Looks like we've got some time to kill. Maybe you can tell us more about the pirates and their history?" Jean smiled, glad to share his knowledge. Pirates were cunning and resourceful. Many were skilled navigators, able to read the stars and use them to chart their course. It makes sense that they'd rely on such skills to hide their treasure. Hank nodded, intrigued. It's amazing how history leaves behind these little mysteries. We're walking in the footsteps of men who lived centuries ago. As the evening deepened and the sky darkened, the first stars began to appear, twinkling above like diamonds scattered across a velvet expanse. The trio watched as the constellations gradually came into view, aligning with the clues from the map. "There," Jean pointed, excitement in his voice. "That constellation matches the markings on the map. We need to follow its direction." With their path now illuminated by starlight, the trio pressed on, guided by the celestial map left behind by those who had come before. Chapter 3. Celestial Alignments. The moon hung low in the sky, casting its silvery glow over the path as the three men made their way through the forest. Their breath misted in the cool night air, the rustling leaves and distant hoots of owls creating an atmosphere both eerie and exhilarating. The trail led them to the edge of a steep ravine, where the stars above seemed to align perfectly with the symbols on the map. Jean checked his compass and nodded in satisfaction. "We're on the right track, lads. The treasure should be close." Sam peered into the ravine, his eyes straining to see in the darkness. "How do we get down there? It looks pretty steep." Hank surveyed the area, his gaze falling on a narrow path winding down the side of the ravine. "Looks like we can follow that trail, but we'll need to be careful." The trio descended cautiously, their footsteps careful on the loose gravel. The path twisted and turned, finally leveling out near the bottom of the ravine. Ahead of them, a small opening was barely visible in the rock face, partially hidden by dense foliage. Jean approached the opening, brushing aside the vines. "This must be one of the entrances to the tunnels. It matches the description on the map." The three men exchanged looks, a mixture of trepidation and determination in their eyes. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. Sam took the lead, his voice steady as he spoke. "No turning back now, lads. Whatever's down there, we face it together." Hank joined him, peering into the darkness. "I hope our flashlights have enough battery. We'll need them down there." As they entered the tunnel, the temperature dropped, and the walls echoed with their footsteps. The air was damp and musty, carrying the scent of earth and stone. Their flashlights illuminated the narrow passage, revealing ancient carvings etched into the walls. More Gaelic symbols, Jean noted, examining the carvings. These seem to be warnings, perhaps left by the pirates to deter anyone who got this far, he said with concern, or directions. Sam, suggesting a little more optimistically, pointing to an arrow carved into the wall. It looks like they're pointing us further in. They followed the arrows, their path twisting and turning through the labyrinth tunnels. The echoes of their footsteps created an eerie symphony, adding to the sense of mystery surrounding them. Finally, they reached a large chamber, its walls lined with wooden beams that had miraculously stood the test of time. At the far end of the chamber, an ornate door stood slightly ajar, its hinges creaking softly in the still air. The trio approached the door, their excitement tempered by caution. Hank pushed it open. "This must be it," Jean breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. The treasure chamber. The chamber was filled with an array of artifacts, old chests, gleaming trinkets, and the telltale glint of gold. The room was like a pirate's hoard, untouched by time and teeming with treasures from a bygone era. Jean picked up a handful of coins, letting them slip through his fingers. "This is incredible. These coins are centuries old. It's a treasure trove of history." Hank inspected one of the ornate artifacts, a golden goblet encrusted with jewels. These pirates were more than just thieves. They were collectors. As they explored the treasure, Jean discovered a hidden compartment beneath the chest's false bottom. Inside was a tattered journal, its pages filled with faded writing and sketches. "This must be the captain's journal," Jean said, flipping through the pages. It details their journey, their adventures, and the story of how they came to Grey Peak. According to this, the fortune was hidden here by pirates who once terrorized these seas. They buried their plunder deep underground to protect it from rival crews and the authorities. Hank peered over his shoulder, intrigued by the sketches. These drawings show the tunnels and their connections. It's like a map of the entire underground network. Sam leaned in, pointing to a passage in the journal. Here it says they hid the bulk of their treasure to ensure their family's future. It's all here, locked away until someone worthy found it. He continued reading, his voice lowering as the story unfolded. This inscription says that after their captain was killed in a final raid, remaining crew escaped and fled here to Grey Peak. They thought they'd found refuge. The town was attacked by raiders shortly after their arrival. Only a few pirates survived, and they hid their fortune here, hoping to retrieve it when it was safe. But most of them didn't live long enough. The town was nearly wiped out, and those who remained kept the secret out of fear and respect. Hank sighed, glancing around at the vast hoard. No wonder it was abandoned. They never had the chance to return, and the secret died with them. The trio stood in silence, realizing the weight of their discovery. This wasn't just gold and jewels. It was the lifeblood of a forgotten crew, treasure trove that had been carefully hidden away. As they absorbed the magnitude of their discovery, the journal's final pages revealed the pirates' decision to settle in Grey Peak. The survivors had integrated into the town, sharing their wealth and knowledge, leaving behind a legacy intertwined with the town's history. "We should bring this back to the town," Hank suggested. "It is part of their heritage, and it could help them rebuild." Sam nodded in agreement. It's not just ours to keep. It belongs to Grey Peak." Jean nodded, tucking the small bag of gems and a few coins into his coat pocket. "We'll take these as proof. The rest stays here for now. It's part of the town's legacy, and it needs to be preserved." With a final look around the room, the trio made their way back through the narrow passage and out into the forest. The morning sun was just beginning to filter through the trees, casting long shadows as they hurried back to town, the weight of their discovery pressing on their minds. Chapter 4. A Legacy Unveiled. The trio had spent the night meticulously organizing the treasure and deciphering the captain's journal, eager to share the remarkable story hidden beneath their feet. The town hall buzzed with activity as the residents of Grey Peak gathered, their curiosity piqued by the sudden meeting called by Hank, Sam, and Jean. The three men stood at the front, a small table before them with the bag of gems and coins as proof of their discovery. "Folks," Sam began, his voice carrying across the room, "we've uncovered something remarkable. Hidden beneath our town is a treasure trove left by pirates who sought refuge here centuries ago. The room fell silent, the weight of Sam's words sinking in. Hank stepped forward, holding up the bag. "This is just a fraction of what we found. The rest is too vast to move in one trip, but it's real, and it's ours." A murmur ran through the crowd, a mix of disbelief and excitement. The town had fallen on hard times in recent years, and the idea of such a fortune was almost too good to be true. Gene cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "This treasure doesn't just belong to us. It's a part of Grey Peak's history, and it's meant for the town. We propose that a portion of it be used to help the residents and improve the town. New infrastructure, schools, and a library that would make our ancestors proud. The majority should be locked away for future generation, a safety net to ensure the town's survival for years to come." The townspeople erupted in applause, their support echoing through the hall. The discovery of the treasure had reignited a sense of unity and purpose in Grey Peak, offering new opportunities and a renewed appreciation for their heritage. The town meeting concluded with a sense of unity and hope. The treasure would be retrieved and safeguarded, its wealth distributed carefully to ensure a brighter future for everyone in Grey Peak. As the residents filed out of the hall, there was a renewed sense of purpose in the air, shared belief that their town was on the brink of something extraordinary. Later that evening, as the trio sat together in the quiet of Hank's living room, sipping on celebratory glasses of whiskey, they reflected on the journey that had led them to this moment. "We've done something good here," Sam said, raising his glass. "Something that'll last." "Aye," Gene agreed, his Irish lilt softening with contentment. "We've uncovered more than just treasure. We've found a way to give this town a future." Hank smiled, clinking his glass against theirs. "To Grey Peak and to the adventure of a lifetime." They drank, the weight of the past lifting as they looked toward the future, knowing that the legacy they'd uncovered would live on in the town they'd helped to save. This short story was brought to you by Jules Wilder, where every voice tells a unique story. Remember to subscribe, and stay tuned for more tales that unravel secrets and intrigue, leaving you eagerly anticipating what comes next.